Hello, in this video we'll be looking at the IELTS test format and the different components that are included in the test. So the IELTS exam is of two types. You have two types of IELTS exams. One is the academic and the other one is general training. The academic is for when you want to go and study abroad, and the general training is for working and migration related situations. So the listening and speaking tests are the same for both the modules, but your reading and writing modules will be different for some parts of the test. On the test day, your listening, reading and writing module will take about 2 hours and 40 minutes, just the test itself, but you do have to factor in the time it takes to hand out the question paper, collect the question paper and all of that. The speaking module will be either 5 days before the date of your test or 5 days after, or on your main test date. So please make sure that you're in the same city that you've applied to write the test in around those timings. The speaking assessment should not take more than 15 minutes. The test itself will be about 11 to 15 minutes, but you do need to give yourself time to check in, register and leave the place. So now the first module that we'll look at is the listening module. The listening takes about 30 minutes. You listen to an audio and you have 10 minutes to copy your answers to an answer sheet. There are 4 sections. It's divided into 4 sections and it does get progressively harder. You do have to answer 40 questions within the listening section. So the 4 sections of the listening is divided into these that I'll just describe now. The first section is usually conversation between 2 people, and it's always set in a everyday social context. Probably like the example that I've given, an accommodation agency, or if you're trying to book a car for your parents or something like that. It's usually a basic everyday social event or a conversation. The second section is usually a monologue set again in a social context. So it can be a speech about the facilities in your local library or about the park or something like that. So monologue means it's just one person speaking. You listen in the third section, you will listen to a conversation between either 2 to up to about 4 people. But this one section is set in an educational context. So it's usually a group of students who are talking about their research projects, or it might also be a university tutor who's discussing an assignment. The last section is when you listen to a monologue, or usually on an academic subject. So a university lecturer who is talking about the migration of flamingos maybe, or something like that. So those are the kind of things that you would encounter in the listening test. The next section that we're going to look at is the academic reading. So the passages may be either from magazines, books, journals, or newspaper articles. They usually cater to a variety of audience, but these passages are usually intended for those who are applying for academic study. So it's a little bit of a higher level than the ones that you'd encounter in the general training reading. So general training has also extracts from maybe magazines, they could be advertisements, a company's handbooks, notices. This is the kind of material that you might encounter in an everyday context and not necessarily of an academic level. However, the general training, you should also note that the third section is hard as well. So both for general training and academic, the reading section as well is gets progressively harder. So it's an hour that you spend on the reading comprehension. So you read 3 passages usually within 3 sections if it's academic. If it's general training, you might have a couple of more passages involved. As I said earlier, it's progressively harder and you have to answer 40 questions. The next module is the writing module. It takes about 60 minutes to finish the 2 tasks within the writing module, And task 2 carries a higher percentage of the overall module score than task 1. So you need to obviously spend a lot more time on task 2 than on task 1. For the academic IELTS, your task 1 is usually a graph, a diagram, a table, a pie chart, or something like that. It usually requires you to summarize and present the information in your own words. Task 2 for both the modules is an essay where you have to present your opinions or present an argument, and it has to be written in a formal and academic style. So you cannot write it, use casual words or slang or things like that. For the general training, your task 1 is a letter. It's usually either formal, informal, or probably sometimes semi-formal too. But again, you still have to write it in proper English. Task 2 requires you to write an essay, which is again similar to the academic one, where you have to give your opinion or answer, give an argument, or talk about the cause and the problems and the solutions of a particular issue. The speaking module, the last module that we're going to look at, is 11 to about 4 minutes. It takes that long. It tests your ability to speak English. So it doesn't assess your facts, but you do have to present logical arguments, logical statements, but it assesses your English above all. So the part 1 is about 4 to 5 minutes. You'll be asked basic general questions, where you live, how do you travel to work, those sort of questions. Part 2 is the long turn. You'll be asked to speak on a topic. You will be given a minute to prepare, and they'll give you a piece of paper to take notes, and then you have to talk about that topic for about 1 to 2 minutes or until they interrupt you. So the topic can be anywhere from your favorite book to your favorite movie, or talk about an event in history or something like that. Part 3 is about 4 to 5 minutes. You'll be asked to discuss the topic that's based on part 2, but there's a little bit more logical reasoning and quick thinking that you need to do in part 3. So that's the IELTS modules. We'll now just go on and quickly look at what the scoring is like. So the results are reported on a band scale of 9, 0 being the least, 1 being the least, and 9 being the highest you can possibly get. It's basically quite simple, and what they do, the score, you're given an individual score for each of the modules. The listening, reading, writing, and speaking will be given a score from 1 to 9 individually, and the scores will be averaged and rounded up to produce an overall band score. So you get individual band scores and an overall band score. So this is taken from the British Council website, and so this is what it means. So if you get a 6, you're a competent user. If you get 7, you're a good user. 8, a very good user. And 9, an expert user. So this is the information about the test, the different modules, the format of the test, and the scoring of the IELTS.